Well, good morning. Welcome to CrossPointe Church. We are so glad that you're here today. If this is your first time visiting with us or we haven't seen you in a while, we extend a warm welcome to you. We are so glad that you are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited about this series because our God and Country series that we are beginning today is unlike anything that I've ever preached in my life before. So I'm excited to share this. And I just want to start off by giving kudos to Andy Stanley. I heard this sermon series, and I said, wow, our people really need to hear this. And so I'm stealing from Andy Stanley, but it's good stuff and it's worth hearing. If you're like me, you probably have found yourself having a lot of conversations recently having to do with what in the heck is going on in our country. I take walks in my neighborhood a lot, and I don't know whether I have a sign on my forehead or what, but people walk right up to me and start talking to me about whatever debate that they're interested in. I mean, several times I've had this happen. People just walk right up and they just start talking, well, I think. And it's really amazing because I think we're living in a time of more national debate than ever before. Debates, Republicans and Democrats, who's rich, who's not rich, conservatives and liberal, big business, small business, too much tax, not enough tax, and everybody's pretty riled up about these debates, and of course, everybody has an opinion of what they think should happen. And if they would just let us spend a week in Washington, man, we could straighten the whole thing out, right? That's what some of us think, and I certainly have my opinion. I'm a pretty opinionated person. But as a pastor, and more importantly, as a believer, I really don't think that all of these issues and all of these debates that are going on are really the main concern and the main problem in our country. I submit to you this morning that beneath all of these national and political debates, there is another bigger debate going on behind the scenes. And I submit to you, in my humble opinion, that it is the real debate, it is the real issue. And the reason that I say that it's the real debate and the real issue is because whenever political or public or social issues intersect with Scripture, whenever Scripture can shed a light on a truth or cause a rub in a truth or point out the real truth about the debate, it becomes real clear to us that we are being confronted with a debate that is of the utmost importance to our nation. But you know what's so interesting about this debate? While people are lining up on either side of the debate, this debate is not public yet because it hasn't bubbled to the surface yet. Some are aware of it, but some aren't. But I think it really is the issue and the main tension and the context for the conflict we face today. And the reason why I say that is because if this debate that we're going to talk about could be resolved, it would definitely help solve the other issues and the other debates that are going on. Now, I'm going to tell you what this debate is a little bit later on in the message. But first, let me tell you what is at the heart of this debate. The real heart of the issue is our national conscience. The real heart of the issue is our national conscience. Now, some of you are thinking, what in the world are you talking about? But the reason this sounds so foreign to us is because our national conscience is something that we never hear discussed. But I submit to you this morning that the debates that are going on in the U.S. today have everything to do with our national conscience. Now, everybody knows what a conscience is. A conscience is that thing inside of us that lets us know what we should and shouldn't do. And we all have a conscience. And the reason we know that we have a conscience is because we've all said things like, wow, I really shouldn't have done that, or wow, I really should have done that. Those are the kind of statements that our conscience causes us to make. Our conscience is like a still small voice inside of us that guides us. In fact, as believers, we truly believe that God speaks to us through our conscience. We believe that God kind of nudges us, in the ribs and goes, and He lets us know very clearly what we should and shouldn't do. But here's the scary thing about our conscience. We can ignore our conscience, can't we? We can ignore our conscience, can't we? Let's just all admit that we've done that before, right? But what's scary about ignoring our conscience is if we ignore it long enough, it gets quieter and quieter. Being a musician, I like to think of it this way. The same thing happens to our conscience that happens to a guitarist's fingers if they play their guitar a lot. What happens? They get calluses on the ends of their fingers. Same thing happens to us if we ignore our conscience long enough. We get calluses on our conscience. And after a while, we get to the place where we don't feel things anymore. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? We've all been there. As individuals, we understand that we have a conscience, and as individuals, we understand that we can become calloused in our conscience. Now, I think that we understand this, but what we don't think much about or talk much about is this thing called a collective conscience. But there is such a thing as a collective conscience. There is a collective conscience at the business where you work. Sometimes we hear it referred to as a corporate culture. And in this corporate culture, there are just certain things that you do, and there are certain things that you don't do. It's the group expectation. It's the collective conscience of the group. We have collective conscience within our family. I mean, we've all gone over to somebody else's house, and maybe they're just not as polite as we are. And maybe they talk about things that we would never talk about. Maybe they use words we would never use. Maybe they even make bodily noises that we would never make in public, at our house. Because if we did those kind of things growing up, boy, we would get spanked so hard, we wouldn't be able to sit down for a week. You know what I'm talking about? But then when we got in the car, do you remember those conversations when you were at some of those rude family homes? We would get in the car and us kids would be like shell-shocked. It would be like, could you believe the way they talk to each other? Could you believe the dinner conversation and they let their kids go to that movie? Oh man, and could you believe the noises they made? And it would be like, our parents would never say it. They wouldn't ever say, well, kids, it's because they have a different collective conscience than we have. But that's exactly the rub that we felt. Because families have a collective conscience, right? Right? Right. In all of our families here, there are some things that we just know that we ought to do, and there are some things we know we ought not to do. Now, they aren't written down. It's just a collective conscience. Companies have it, families have it, friendships have it, and nations have it.